Even though you've only seen a few scant details, you know what this car is. You know it's one of the fastest cars the world has ever seen. From 2005 to 2015, just 450 of these were built, and over that decade it became a household name, the most famous car on the planet. This is the Bugatti Veyron. I was 19 in 2005 when the Veyron first appeared, and it was, without doubt, the most impressive thing my young mind had ever heard about. 0 to 62 in 2.5 seconds, top speed of 250, 1,001 horsepower. Unbelievable stuff then, and still benchmarked today. Before we got to the car you see here, at the tail end of the 20th century, Bugatti had been bought by VW. Then Bugatti released a number of concepts, a sports car, a saloon, and something called the Chiron, named after a famous Bugatti racer. It boasted an 18-cylinder engine with big power. It also looked rather like a Veyron. It was late 1999 when a new concept appeared, this one called Veyron. Like its predecessor, it had a name borrowed from Bugatti's past, this time legendary test driver and racer Pierre Veyron, and it had 18 cylinders. No news on a production car though until the 2000 Geneva Motor Show, where VW Group boss Ferdinand Piech stated that his new car would be the most exciting and advanced car of its time. No more, no less. Not only would it come with over 1,000 horses, but its 0 to 62 time had to be less than 3 seconds, its top speed 250 miles an hour, and it had to be drivable every day, so you could, apparently, drive yourself and your partner to the opera. Let's run through just how they did some of the really complicated bits, shall we? The engine, for example. It was worked out that in order to generate the desired power, you'd need to bolt 2 V8s together. However, that would be too big, so they went with 2 VR8 style engines, VW's old VR style, very narrow V. Put 2 of those together and you end up with a W16, in this case an 8-litre W16 with 4 turbochargers on it. Then there's the master of the gearbox. The original Veyron had 922 pound-foot to deal with. Not only that, but Bugatti wanted a 7-speed DSG box. The job for that was sent to Ricardo in Britain. And it's worth noting that apparently during testing, the gearbox stood up to 200 full-bore starts on the trot, and the only reason they didn't do more was because it was getting dark. In order to deliver that power to the road without eating tyres at an alarming rate, Bugatti decided to go with all-wheel drive. However, to make the car accelerate at the rate it does, the tyres needed to take the strain. Michelin sorted them out. They run at around €23,000 a set, or at least did at launch. A little behind the tyres, the brakes needed to be able to stop the car going 250 plus miles an hour. They're made of a silicon carbide carbon fibre mix with the equivalent of 4,000 brake horsepower. That means they were so strong that they could get the Veyron from 62 miles an hour to nothing in 2.2 seconds, which means theoretically a Veyron can do 0 to 62 to 0 in the same time it takes a 2014 V8 R8 Spider to get to 62. Impressive stuff. In order to fit the brakes though, the car needed bigger wheels, and in order to have the bigger wheels, the suspension needs to be fiddled with to make sure the car could, handle them. Then there's cooling all of the massive things that get incredibly hot. In order to do that, you need a pretty epic radiator. But because of the shape of the car, you can't have just one big radiator, so instead it was split off into 10 bits dotted around. The Veyron may look big, but it isn't. It's actually quite a small car. It's nowhere near as big as you think it is. So the plumbing in here is literally mind-boggling. Basically, every time a challenge was met, there were another set of challenges to meet to make up for what had just been achieved. The whole development was a game of engineering cat and mouse. Initially, the Veyron was due for release in April 2004, but there were some very loud doubts coming from the press. They weren't helped by the Veyron falling off the Laguna Seca at its first outing. Then the delay was announced. And so it was decreed that the Veyron would be a touch late, but that's kind of understandable when you consider the sheer engineering involved, the numbers they had to achieve. It seemed like some kind of dream, it just couldn't be real, but it was. And in September 2005, the Veyron was launched. In 2005, when a VW Golf GTI, a fast car for, us normal people, had 197 brake horsepower, the 5 times more powerful Veyron was simply staggering. It was mind-blowing. The world was coming down from the 650 horsepower Ferrari Enzo, and that got to 62 a whole second slower than the Veyron. Instantly, the Veyron started breaking records. Its 254 mph top speed made it the fastest car in the world, taking the record from the McLaren F1. It was supposedly easy to drive, deft on track, and of course effortlessly fast. However, it evolved over time. In 2009, Bugatti released the Grand Sport. It was a convertible version of the Veyron. It came with a target top. It had to be reinforced a little bit to make up for the lack of roof, and its speed was limited, al fresco, to a little under 230 miles an hour. Thanks to some pretenders trying to take the Veyron's crown, Bugatti added an extra 200 horsepower to the mix and created the Super Sport, taking its own top speed record to 268 miles an hour. Those pretenders were mostly from America and claimed some pretty mad top speeds, but Bugatti wouldn't let the Veyron be second to anything. After all, the Veyron stood and still stands for perfection. As well as a fair few special editions with various flares, there was a Grand Vitesse, a supersport without a roof. That car too holds a world record, as it's the fastest car without a roof, dropping a 254 mph top speed. And that's this car. This is the fastest open-top car in the world, right now. Bugatti has a certificate to prove it and everything, and the chap who drove it even signed the kick plate on the passenger side. It takes what you know about driving and reshuffles it. There are fast cars. There are really fast cars. But none of them are fast compared to this. Absolutely none. My benchmark for speed, for like silly speed, silly road cars, is a Porsche 911 Turbo S, the 991. Every time you just put your foot down just a little bit, the tolerances are so thin, you'll just fire yourself off into the distance and you get a big punch in the kidneys, and it lets you know that it's using all of its turbo torque. This has quite a lot of torque as well. The Grand Vitesse has 1,106 pound-feet. And where the 911 Turbo S will give you a bit of a punch in the kidney, this gives you a shove, but a really, really prolonged shove. It's mind-boggling just how good the acceleration is. And it's unrelenting, absolutely unrelenting. And it's not just that it does that speed, or that it does that speed in low gears. It's the fact that it gets from 30 to 220 in a stretch of road which is minuscule. Absolutely tiny. It's the rate at which it covers ground. It re-scrambles your brain. It makes you think about speed and driving in such a different way, because in here, say you're driving a slow car, you have to plan where you're going to be, when you're going to overtake, is it safe? With this, you have to plan when you're going to stop accelerating. You just can't get enough of the acceleration. It pins you back in your seat, but unlike other cars, you don't ease forward and get used to it. The car just continues to pin you back. Those 4 turbos work. Good God, they work. I've been told that on some circuits, while it may enter a straight slower than LMP1 car, it will finish it faster. It's that fast. Then you get the brakes. The brakes are amazing. They have to be, of course, to stop something that in this case weighs nearly 2 tons and can travel at over 250 miles an hour. But they're not heavy. They've got really nice, really smooth, progressive feel. They feel like normal brakes until you lean on them, and then you generate well over a G just stopping the car. It gets on its nose. This isn't a car that makes you think, oh, I must treat it very carefully. This is a car that actually allows you to be a bit of an arse if you want to be, because Bugatti hasn't designed a racing car that's going to punish you. They've designed a car that actually they want you to be super safe in. And if you want to do this thing's top speed, you have to enter speed mode. It's a special key, you pop down there, you twist it and magic happens. It lowers the car and actually changes its shape. But the weird thing is, it'll do that and it won't break a sweat. It won't fuss. It's smooth, it's quiet, it's relaxing almost, frankly. Once you learn how to drive it, once you reassess exactly how to drive a car, and then how to drive a fast car, and then what a fast car is, the Veyron's a pussycat. It's a wonderful thing to drive. It's absolutely lovely. They've paid such attention to making this a car that can do absolutely everything. When I was a kid, I thought something like a Ferrari, when you steered, it went exactly in the direction you wanted it to, because that's how steering worked. The brakes worked like that. The acceleration, just pushing the back of your seat and you're clinging on for dear life. That's how I thought cars worked, especially fast ones. And having driven them, yeah, they're very quick, they brake very quickly and they handle very well. But they're not that kind of childish image of, so that's how fast cars work. This actually is. And right now I'm going to show you the face you make. Ready? So fast! Because it will do that over and over again. What you think is fast is not fast. Any preconception you have of fast is not fast. You're wrong. This thing is unbelievable. The Veyron is, in case I've not said it enough, a marvel of engineering. It's a legend within its own lifetime. It's also delightfully silly. It costs far more than a car really should and goes far faster than anyone really needs to go. You could argue the Veyron then is a silly car, one made for playboys with wallets to match mouths that like a good run. But I don't think so, and neither should you. This is proof that when mankind says it wants a car that you can drive at 250 miles an hour whenever you want, yet still be usable on a daily basis, there's the engineering in place to make it happen. And all the lessons learned during its development can be filtered out to other applications. And those lucky few who get to own them, who get to drive them on a daily basis, get to enjoy what is undoubtedly one of the finest pieces of automotive engineering ever conceived. This is the original hypercar. Faster, more powerful, and more expensive than everything else.